A deaf, blind, dumb, backwards person speaking an African language, coming from the African country, came here to be a parasite on their own people with no respect for themselves as human beings, and then because they speak a language, try to make you play you off like they got something culturally that you don't have. The most culturally enforced African in the world is the African American. Most of the movements that have changed the world that allow all ethnic nations to profit has been our movement. And so we get peed on and played down because these people are so punked out and scared of the white man that they feel because they're scared of the white man, they got to be against us. You know?
It's Robo the Rebel back with another video. Today's video is Robo the Rebel, ADOS, FBA, or Pan-African. But before we get to the video, give your fellow rebel a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. So let's head on over to Twitter, and this is where today's video is taking place. So as we jump over to Twitter here, I did a live stream back on October 26th, and the title of the live stream was called They Came for the Title, and it was talking about how Kevin Samuels right now is one of the most popular content creators in the Black YouTube space, and he's very popular. If you're not new to YouTube today, or you've been living under a rock or what have you, then you know who Kevin Samuels is. And there have been several other content creators who have taken, maybe taken a shot, or taken, as I was jokingly referring to, taking a shot at the title, right? Kind of challengers taking in shots for Kevin Samuels' title of the most popular YouTuber. And one of the people that I focused on as a content creator was a brother named Omowale Afrika. And so I did the live stream. Live stream lasted over 3 hours. I tagged Omowale in it. I didn't feel that I was necessarily saying anything bad about Omowale in the video, just the standpoint from some of the things that he said about Kevin Samuels. I thought that he was kind of off message, and that what he's doing isn't going to stop Kevin Samuels. The train is rolling, and what I feel that he's doing is great information. Brother has an excellent channel, excellent content creator. I do advise anyone listening to this video to check out the brother's content, subscribe to his channel, so forth. But in the live stream, I was referring to, or actually I was reacting to a comment that he made based on some putting together the information for the live stream to go through it. I noticed some things that I hadn't noticed before listening to his content. So I reacted to one of the things that he said in the content, and he kind of clipped that information and then he put it up on Twitter. So I'm going to read his comment on Twitter, and then I'm going to go through the video information that this pertains to. So he says on Twitter, "Since the start of the ADOS movement, I've been accused of not being an African American for my name, my hairline, and the shape of my nose, but this one took the cake."
Stop the cap.
And I have to say, stop the cap, brother. This one did not take the cake, and I'll say what it was. It was some mispronunciation of some very common English words that native English speakers, I feel, would not or should not make those types of pronunciation or errors in speaking those words. It's as if I speak Arabic, or not necessarily fluent in Arabic, but if I were to go to a Arab-speaking country, and let's just remove the physical appearance for a second, if I were speaking to the native Arabs, they would hear in my pronunciation of certain words and sounds peculiar, and it would tip them off that I am not a native Arab speaker, thus I'm probably an immigrant or something to that effect. And that's basically the comment that I made, and we can actually just jump right into it. I did see this comment, and it was right as I jumped on the Twitter. I did see it. It was like a minute old, and I was like first thing on my timeline. So I quickly just replied to it and basically said, wasn't accusing you of not being ADOS, just found the pronunciation of certain words peculiar. It doesn't matter to me whether you are or not. I still rock with your content. You do, however, mispronounce those words. Now, this is true. I did not. It doesn't matter to me whether he is or not. It doesn't matter. I still rock with his content, and I actually should have just let that be. New content creator, mistakes are made. But I was reacting live, and a thought had came to me as I was going through the information, putting together the live stream. I had not, uh, like I said, I had not noticed those things before that he was saying before, because I would just listen to the content, consume it and go about my business. Whether I'm working or driving, that's typically when I listen to YouTube content, when I'm driving, and I kind of have a physical job, so my headphones are in and I'm working and I'm doing something, moving back and forth. So it's not that I'm really really paying that close attention to what's being said. I can digest it, but I'm but as I was putting it together, I'm really listening for looking for certain parts, and I just noticed it, and then I react, and had the thought and reacted based upon what he said. So let's jump into what I reacted to. I'll jump into what I reacted to, and then I'll jump into the clip the portion of the clip that he chose of mine, and this is where this comes from. So he, based upon his Twitter comment here, he tried to frame me as I'm part of the ADOS movement. Okay, and we're gonna get into what ADOS is if you're not familiar, and am I a part of that group or whatever it means, so forth. Okay.
Let me ask you a question,
Mm-hmm.
because you talked about pairing.
Yep.
If you were a part of a community that was looking to develop arranged marriages, would you be? Let me just ask the question like this: would you be open to arranged marriages? And let me just say, full disclosure, I'm a product of an arranged marriage. My mom and my pop been together for 44 years, and they the church back then used to be very different. You know what I mean? I'm not in the church, but that's my roots. I'm Black America, right? ADOS, as people like to say it. But that's my roots. But my mom and my dad have been married. I think it's at 44. They've been married since 1977. So to say it in Black America, right?
I just want to play this again.
ADOS, as people like to say it.
Okay.
But that's my roots. But
Okay, so that's the clip that I was reacting to when he stated, his parents have been married. He's a product of an arranged marriage. His parents have been married for 44 years, et cetera, and part of the church, blah, blah, blah. Then he said, and to his credit, he did say Black America. I reacted to the ADOS part. I actually didn't hear Black America until I played it back. That he said, and then he said, ADOS is, it was animated when he threw his hands up. ADOS is, some people call it. So I just reacted to that. And when I normally speak to people, if someone says a phrase, even if I don't necessarily use that phrase, I repeat back that phrase to let them understand that I'm understand what you're saying. So in forms of communication, it's just confirmation that I understand what you just said. So I will repeat back what you said. So that's what I did in this case. And I actually, when I listened to it again, it was like I felt even uncomfortable saying it because I don't use that term. But let's jump into what I then said. Okay.
Black America, right? ADOS, as people like to say it. But that's my roots. But my mom and my dad have been married. I think it's at 44. They've been married since 1977. So, an arranged marriage, so to speak.
Okay, I gotta say this. Okay, I know Omowale said he keeps saying he's from Philly. He's from Philly, and he just stated he's ADOS or ADOS. And you see right here, notice I'm gonna pause it here. I totally missed that he said Black America, and because you hear this term ADOS or ADOS or whatever on social media. It's grown in popularity in the last couple of years. And if you're not aware of it, you're not necessarily missing anything in terms of you're left out in the cold. But if you're in certain circles in social media, YouTube or what have you, you will hear this term. So I reacted. So I'm reacting to based on what he said. Now he clipped out him saying ADOS, and he only picked up my voice. This is where the clip that he took and put on Twitter. He clipped out him saying Black America ADOS. So as if he didn't state it first. And he clipped me saying it. This is where he started with me saying it ADOS to frame me as ADOS. And let me keep playing my comments so you can hear it in full context and so forth. Black American. But I got to know what that bro. And actually, I said black. I guess I did catch it. Him saying Black American. This is just I'm listening to it again for the first time. So let me back up and just hear it again. And I'm just gonna let it play from when he stated Black America ADOS to the end of the clip, because he totally clipped out him saying Black America ADOS, but he put me in it and then framed me as ADOS, even though I did say Black America also. But anyway.
ADOS, as people like to say it, but that's my roots. But my mom and my dad have been married. I think it's at 44. They've been married since 1977. So, an arranged marriage, so to speak.
Okay, I gotta say this. Okay, I know Omowale said he keeps saying he's from Philly. He's from Philly, and he just stated he's ADOS or ADOS. Black American. But I gotta know where that brother's family is from, because this brother has an accent in it, and it sounds Caribbean in terms of some of the words that he pronounces. When he pronounces things and thought, he says things and thought and rum, and that's not a Philly accent that I'm hearing. And in terms of when he speaks and he's talking about women, he says the woman are. When it should be the women are. And he's much too smart to make those type of grammatical errors. This has to be something that he's heard, and this is just how he came up speaking. And I say Caribbean because I can't remember where the brother was from, but he had a problem. I've noticed that he had a problem with the TH sounds. He couldn't get the 30 or this or things. He would say things or 30 or thought. And Brother Omowale does it. So I'm curious. I know he keeps saying he's black, but I just never heard anybody from Philly speak that way. And that sounds. These are errors, English speaking errors, the non-speaking English speaking. Maybe his grandmother, I don't know, grandparents or something. Somebody close to him that he grew up around speaks that way, because he didn't learn to speak like that in school. To make those TH sounds, to mix those up like that. And he's much too intelligent to not know that. So it's something he's been doing all his life to continue to still doing it. But nonetheless, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But here we go. Here's the thing. So he's at. Okay, so that's the end of the clip. That's the end of the clip there, and let's jump back over to Twitter here. So, and it was late. Note to self to not do these live streams so late. I'm an early riser. I get up typically about 4 o'clock in the morning, and like every day, without an alarm clock, my body just wakes me up, and I'm up, and I start working or I'm doing something, and by the end of the night, 8, 9, I'm running. I'm like running on empty or on fumes. So I felt like I'm listening to myself. I'm like, I sound drunk. I'm like, I'm all over the place. I said it's not a Philly accent. I shouldn't have not been talking about accent, whatever. I said it's a Caribbean accent. I'm like, no, it's. And the brothers that I was talking about are some brothers that I know from Trinidad who had an issue with those same TH sounds, that they will confuse the different TH sounds. In English, there's about 3 different TH sounds, for 30 or this or that or the word the or the whatever. Anyway, they would confuse those, and so I wasn't thinking accents. I was thinking the mispronunciations, but I said accents, and why I said Philly. My wife has family from Philly. I've never heard them confuse those th sounds. Now, have I ever heard them say north, where they superimpose the an F sound for the th sound? Yes, I've heard them say north. Also, I was back in 1998. I know it's been over 20 years, but I was in Philly and I was contemplating moving to Philly because the job market in terms of the networking opportunities, computer networking, Cisco networking specifically, was hot during the time, and there were a lot of jobs, and I was getting a lot of job offers from Philly, and I went up there to explore some of those offers, particularly in the King of Prussia area. But I was around the Germantown area, in the masjids and so forth, and I didn't hear any people speaking that way, whatever. But whatever, I shouldn't have questioned it. It was just a reaction, but that's how live streaming goes. I had a thought. I paused the video and stated what I was thinking at the time, whatever. It is what it is, okay? So now let's jump back over to Twitter, like I said, and look at his tweet here. Since the start of the ADOS movement. So that right there kind of framed me in that movement. I've been accused of not being an African American for my name, my hairline, and the shape of my nose, but this one took the cake. No, actually, the hairline thing is out of the three that he mentioned, or excuse me, out of the four, because he mentioned name, hairline, shape of nose, but this one took the cake, right? So me stating that he mispronounces some commonly spoken English words that native English speaking people don't typically make, right? These are things that you learn in first, second grade phonics class, right? When you're learning to read, you learn the different th sounds based on the words that you're learning, first and second grade, right? So I don't expect adults, especially adults as read as Omowale, to make as educated as Omowale. I'm sure he at least has a bachelor's, maybe master's, maybe PhD, I don't know. But he's obviously well read, well educated. I wouldn't expect for him to make, that mistake. Obviously, unless it's something that you grew up, a mistake that you grew up making anyway, right? So apparently, maybe it is. Maybe that was just a bad schools or whatever in Philly education system, elementary schools, whatever it is. He makes a mistake. It doesn't matter. But I'm pointing it out. And I'm only doing this because it's content for YouTube. Like, do I really care about someone trying to frame me a certain way on Twitter? Well, let's just ask Dave Chappelle what
I don't give a fuck because Twitter's not a real place.
Right? I don't care. So I'm only making this as content. Now, let's jump into and then like I said, and actually when I even read his comment, like I said, I saw it in the first minute when I jumped on the Twitter, and I actually misread his comment and said, basically wasn't accusing you of not being ADOS, but damn, he was actually putting me in the ADOS, framework or what have you, right? So, here's the question. Is Robo the Rebel ADOS, FBA, or Pan-African? All right, Pan-African. What is he? Now, let me explain it for myself as opposed to Omowale trying to frame me a certain way on Twitter. And I don't know what were the replies because I don't really care about who says what because I'm confident and I know who I am. So let's jump over to who is ADOS, right? ADOSfoundation.org. This is the group. This is the group where ADOS came from, so to speak, I guess, if you will. It's founded by, it means, actually, let's go back to what it means. The American Descendants of Slavery, right? That's what ADOS stands for. The American Descendants of Slavery. It's supposed to be something that specifically identifies Black Americans who descend from uh, those Africans formerly enslaved during chattel slavery, what have you, right? It's supposed to directly identify that lineage. It's supposed to be a lineage, but when it started out, there's a lot of confusion because it was like a political organization. Now at least they got the founders, Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore. They actually finally got smart enough to say that you can't have your lineage name the same as your political organization name. It made no sense, right? So I never joined this group. Now, do I understand why they did this? Of course, yes. And I'm going to get to the clip that I started with in the beginning, because that has a lot to do with all three of these movements. Okay, so I agree with what they are fighting for, mostly reparations for the descendants of, slaves in America, right? Not in the Caribbean. We know there were slaves in the Caribbean and other places, but they're talking about specifically the reparations or the debt that's owed to the Black Americans who descend from slavery, right? And that's where this came from. And actually, let's jump over here to this brother Norris Shelton, right? This brother Norris Shelton started a American Slaves Inc. organization. Antonio and Yvette used to go to this brother's meetings. This brother actually came up with something that I think they just remixed, and I actually thought his description was better. He called his the Descendants of American Slaves. I actually thought that was better than ADOS, which is American Descendants of Slaves. But I thought Descendants of American Slaves was actually ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery. But his was Descendants of American Slaves. I actually thought his was better, but I didn't adopt either one. I didn't join either one of these groups. I don't use either one of these definitions to identify Black Americans. In fact, I use Black Americans to identify Black Americans until there's a term that I feel is more descriptive, right? I think Yvette Carnell, she either copyrighted ADOS or she trademarked it. One of the two. She did one or the other. I can't remember which. So if that's a lineage that's supposed to describe millions of people, millions of Black people in the United States, how are you then the owner, trademark, or copyright, either way it goes, of that particular name? So I would never get down with any organization that does anything like that. Now, based on my lineage, does my lineage qualify me as ADOS? Yes. Does it qualify me of Descendants of American Slaves? Yes. So obviously, if I wanted to, I could have joined either one of these organizations, and it wouldn't matter. There would have to be no denial if I did join those groups and I was a part of those groups. It wouldn't matter to anyone one way or the other, and there wouldn't be anything that anyone could do about it anyway. So I understand why Omowale tried to frame me that way. I'll talk about that once I finish this one here. So let's go over to FBA. What is FBA? FBA stands for Foundational Black Americans. This term was coined by Tariq Nasheed, the director of the Hidden Colors series, author, so forth. He's active on social media as well, YouTube, all these places, spaces, whatever. And he coined this term, and he took this term from Dr. Claude Anderson, who used to describe Native Black Americans to separate the Black Americans who were here before, who were here during slavery, descendant of slavery, and before the explosion of immigration after 1965 of Caribbeans and Africans around the world or whatever, right? Now, same thing here. FBA Foundational Black Americans also they look at the lineage of three different types of people who are foundational Black Americans according to Tariq, and those are those who were Aboriginals here. There were some Native Americans who were already here before any European ever set foot in the northern hemisphere, in this continent, there were Aboriginals here. Some looked like Asians, the Red Indians, and then there were some who were black people who looked like Africans and who were actually later reclassified as Negro. So those people, those Africans who were enslaved and brought here, and then the people who, like the Moors or the Africans who left Europe or other places and came and settled here. Those, and obviously they were here, and that's why he has the flag here, 1526, Foundation of Black Americans. That's the first, and this is reported by, that date is one of the first settlements here that black people helped establish in 1526, way before that 1719 or whatever project that people talk about. That black people were here long before the 1719 project. Now, do I use this term FBA? No, I do not. Based upon this is also classified as a lineage, but same thing here. Tariq either trademarked or copyrighted the term Foundational Black American, but if it's a lineage, how can you trademark or copyright my lineage name, right? So Yvette did one, he did the other. That's why I'm saying I can't remember if he copyrighted it and she trademarked it, or if he trademarked it and she copyrighted their name respectively. I can't remember, so that's why I'm saying both. You guys correct me in the comments, actually. So my lineage will fit into two of these categories here, right? The Aboriginals, and then of course the descendants of enslaved Africans who were here. But I just want to point this out. This is an FBA flag, and I'm pointing this out for a reason. Okay, now let's get to the Pan-African. Let's get to the Pan-African thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the opening video again so you can see it, because I know you might have forgotten what it was about. But I'm going to play that again. You guys go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. But I'm going to play this again so that you can see this in its context. And here we go.
A deaf, blind, dumb, backwards person speaking an African language, coming from the African country, came here to be a parasite on their own people with no respect for themselves as human beings, and then because they speak a language, try to play you off like they got something culturally that you don't have. The most culturally enforced African in the world is the African American. Most of the movements that have changed the world, that allow all ethnic nations to profit, has been our movement. And so we get peed on and played down because these people are so punked out and scared of the white man that they feel because they're scared of the white man, they got to be against us. You know?
All right, brother. Speak that rebel talk, Professor James Small. Okay, let's jump over to the biography for Professor James Small. Okay, now who is he? Let's see. It's a chat with the Pan-Africanist Professor James Small, right? It's too much to read. He's very accomplished, and I respect the brother greatly. And actually, I identify with what he was stating in the video, maybe not as harshly as he did, but no one in the conscious community or the Pan-African community would not think that Professor Small is a Pan-African and that he identifies all of us as Africans, right? And what he said there was very critical here. But let's go through his biography, right? So he was the principal, I'm going to jump around here. He's principal bodyguard of Ella L. Collins, the sister of Malcolm X, right? He was a member of SNCC, NAACP, Uhuru Fighters. He interacted with such historical giants as Adam Clayton Powell, Kwame Ture, H. Rap Brown, Eldridge Cleaver, Zaid Shakur, Lumumba Shakur, and let's see. He says he's been a member of the Association of Study of Classical African Civilization. He studied for 14 years. He served as the president of that organization for 2 years. He worked with and studied with, he studied with giants, right? He worked with and studied with, these are giants in the Pan-African community, right? So, and I'm pointing this out because so that way he can't be discredited for what he just said, right? I can be discredited, but Professor Small can't. He worked with and studied with Dr. John Henrik Clark, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen, right? Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Amos Wilsons, and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, just to name a few. Okay, so now look what he said. So he's identifying that there's a specific lineage of African American from the global African community. He pointed out that there's a lineage difference, that we're different. Even though he used the term African American, I don't use that term either. And from this point forward, at least in the YouTube space, I'm going to stick to my square and just continue to use Black American until there's a term that's more specific, that specifically, I think, more accurately describes who we are, and it isn't being trademarked or copyrighted by other people, because you can't trademark or copyright my lineage, right? Now, when I'm speaking of Africans in the diaspora and us in a global sphere, I consider all of us Africans, whether you're in the Caribbean or in the continent of Africa or in Europe or Asia or here in North America. Yes, collectively we're all Africans. That's what I believe. Now, but when it comes to politics, we have to be able to identify ourselves differently, because our politics are different than the immigrants who come here and settle here in the United States, right? Let's say this. How disrespectful would it be for Black Americans to go to South Africa or somewhere in Nigeria or somewhere in the Caribbean or anywhere else in Africa and try to get elected into politics? And once we get elected into politics, start making policies that benefit Black Americans over the native people in those countries, whether they're in the Caribbean or Nigeria or South Africa. How disrespectful would that be? Or how disrespectful would it be if Black Americans went to those countries and started telling those people how to run their politics and what they should or should not get and what they should do to better their situation? That would be very disrespectful, and that's what happens to us all the time, and that's what Professor Small was talking about. He was way more harsh than I would be, but nonetheless, you can't attack his credentials. You can't discredit Dr. James Small. That's why I played that clip. That's why I brought up his biography. And so, is Robo the Rebel ADOS? My lineage says I would be, but I don't follow that. I'm not a part of that organization, nor do I use that term to describe Black Americans. Is Robo the Rebel FBA, Foundational Black American? My lineage says I am, but I don't use that term. Tariq states that there's no group called FBA, it's just a lineage. Well, even if there was a group, I wouldn't be a part of it. But nonetheless, I don't use that term to describe Black Americans, right? Am I Pan-African? My thought process aligns towards Pan-Africanism, right? As Dr. Claude Anderson stated, racism is a team sport. So you play as a team or you're going to lose. So obviously you have to play as a team, Africans on one side and Europeans on the other side. So I agree with that, but I don't even know what you have to be to become a Pan-African. I don't know if you have to join one of these organizations and then, celebrate, the 100 years of Marcus Garvey movement, and the Pan-African all the way up to this date hadn't been able to recreate the success that Marcus Garvey had. It's what are you celebrating? In fact, Neely Fuller stated that we shouldn't celebrate anything but the end of white supremacy. But that's a side note. So my thought process and global political strategy aligns with Pan-Africanism, but my at home, in our backyard, in our house, in our living room, so to speak, here as Black Americans in the United States, I wouldn't lean Pan-African and saying, oh, well, all of the Africans who come here or Caribbeans who come here should get the same benefits that, and privileges that the Black Americans here who are native to the land get. I don't believe that. Are they welcome here? Sure. They should come here and help us fight. They shouldn't come here and undermine us, is what the professor was speaking about. They should not come here and undermine us. That's disrespectful. They come here and get elected, and then, some of them, not all of them, but some of them will try to pass legislation to help other immigrants, as opposed to the Black people who most likely voted for them and put them into office and so forth. And then one last time, let's jump back over to Twitter. I want you guys to see something here. I want you to see something. I'm gonna jump over. I want to go to Yvette Carnell's and Tariq Nasheed's Twitter. Right? Look at what I have here. ADOS conference. ADOS, her picture, and then she has an American flag in her bio. All right. Let's jump over to Tariq. Okay. Look at the flag. FBA 1526. Tariq Nasheed also has these flying the American flag, Foundation of Black American. Okay. All right. Now, let's take a look at this. Omowale is a professor. Seems like he doesn't do research. And now, what is this flag here? There's no American flag. There's no mention of ADOS, no mention of FBA, none of that. But what is this flag here? This one. This flag is the Black American Heritage flag. That's what I'm flying. I'm Muslim. I'm not even flying a Muslim flag. I'm not flying the moon and the crescent. But what am I flying? The Black American Heritage flag. It's very easy to see, but he painted me this way, and I'm going to go back to his tweet. He wanted to paint me into this ADOS movement to discredit me, right? And, I have some friends. What do we think about that? Tell him, Kawhi. What yeah, that's laughable. Like I said, this doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I did this. This is just for content. This is a great content piece that I thought of. I was like, I'm not gonna respond back on Twitter. And it's funny because the only reason why I even thought of this even again and made me think about it was because I saw a couple of different responses to my reply that I was notified of. And so I said, wait a minute, I'm not gonna go back and forth. This is just content. But again, I'm neither lineage wise. Yes, I don't use the term from this point forward. As always, I would just use Black Americans to identify Black Americans and myself in particular. That's exactly where we leave this. So the question is: Robo the Rebel, ADOS, FBA, or Pan-African? Lineage wise, I'm all three. Global ideology, Pan-African, but here at home, politically, I'm about Black Americans, and that's the term that I use. So no, sorry, Omowale Afrika, not ADOS. It's a good try, but no, sir. But anyway, those are my final thoughts, and I will see you on the next one.